We often like to talk about the best players in the world, ponder who might be the GOATs of CS. But what about fall-offs, the highest of highs to the lowest of lows? Today we are going to be deep diving into one of the most dramatic individual turndowns in the modern era. Welcome to the rise and fall of Ax1le. From playing on HLTV's #1 team in the world for 14 weeks to now being chased by a job application letter, he can now sit around the campfire with PatrikZero, Breeze and Kirby and laugh about their peaks, while being non-verbal, reflecting on their declines. There would probably even be some good stories of how long they got to paycheck steal for. To understand how one of the best riflers in the world for 2 straight years is now begging for offers, we need to go back and look at how he reached his peak first. The young 15-year-old made his HLTV debut at a random LAN event in Tampa and spent most of 2018 playing on and off with the 5 Balls organisation. While the team itself was pretty crap, he showed enough promise to get a massive call up to Gambit. Imagine being this young rookie. You've been grinding in Tier 3 for not even a year, and now you are playing alongside 2 major winners in Doja and Mo. Mir, who had just had 2 very successful years on Vega Squadron, and finally being coached by the legendary Blade, who had only just retired from playing professionally on Flipside. This lineup on paper had everything: experience and youth. But the results were dreadful. The organisation had qualified for the past 5 majors in a row and even lifted a major trophy in 2017, but had now been embarrassed as they failed to even qualify to the following one in Katowice. There were now 2 clear options for Ax1le. Look and hope for another top offer, or stay with Gambit as they look to create an academy side. And so, Gambit Youngsters was formed in April 2019 and debuted on HLTV at an international LAN in Denmark. Outside of Ax1le, no one on this entire roster had played professionally before. They were all young rookies trying to make a name for themselves. This entire year was very average for the squad. They won a small LAN in North America, but were pumped in a failed qualification to the Starlighter Berlin Major, and showed very little threat in winning online titles and being a top tier 2 unit. HLTV had Gambit Youngsters as the 25th best team in the world in mid-November, but this was a misrepresentation of the lineup's level through the year. Ax1le finished 2019 with garden variety stats as a rifler. If anything, it was Shiro that was talk of the town as an AWPer that was a hot prospect, and any tier 1 GM would look at the riflers and say, GG, go next. The first few months of 2020 were looking average, but something started to click around July and the floodgates opened with wins. I wonder if it had anything to do with adding this random Kazakhstani rifler in Hobbit. In all seriousness, imagine being a tier 1 player with a major win under your belt and you are about to join an academy side where everyone is 19 or younger. It's actually crazy that Hobbit accepted this offer in the first place. From April to September that year, I had the pleasure of casting Gambit Youngsters 15 times on HLTV. I saw their rise firsthand. I even covered both of their grand final matches in Multivibes Week 4 and 9-5-2 where they were successful. At one point, they were on a 21 game winning streak, even racking up being undefeated in 31 maps in a row. Around this period, you'd probably get more enjoyment out of watching paint dry than spectating any other tier 2 team try and defeat Gambit Youngsters. It just wasn't going to happen. Ax1le went from Bruce Banner in 2020 to the Hulk in 2021. He was absolutely frying. Him alongside Shiro was such a joy to watch. By the way, a full team of people worked on this video. If you'd like to help us make more content like this, check out today's sponsor, SkinsMonkey. If you are getting tired of your skins, SkinsMonkey is here to save the day with their trusted, fully automated platform. Just look how easy it is to trade your old skins for fresh ones. You'll have a brand new look in minutes. When you use code DWEG, you will get up to $5 in free credit as a welcome bonus on your first trade. The more you trade, the larger the bonus. If you are looking to just purchase skins rather than trade them, you are free to do that too. With code DWEG, SkinsMonkey gives you a 35% deposit bonus. You can even get skins completely for free by completing fun tasks or by entering daily, weekly and monthly giveaways. To top it all off, they also have 24/7 live support ready to help you out with anything. Want to try? Check out SkinsMonkey by clicking in the link in the description of this video. It really is the best way to support the channel. Thank you. Now, let's get back to the video. By October, the academy side had proved their worth to the Gambit organisation, who hadn't had a main lineup for around 18 months. So it wasn't really a promotion, but just a name change. Eyes were on this young rookie squad to see if they could continue this incredible run of form, and not only did they achieve that, but they pushed on to impress even further. Under the new banner, the youngsters won 34 out of 40 matches on HLTV, even beating tier 1 squads online like Complexity, Virtus Pro, Spirit and Cloud9. Hobbit found his groove massively once the lineup stepped up in competition and played versus those stronger squads. With the strength of Shiro on the AWP and Ax1le's rifling ability, This core of 3 was very scary to play against. Gambit proved easily they can win titles in Tier 2, but what about at that elite level? If there were any concerns about that, then the run at IM Katowice would surely silence all. This tournament featured 24 teams, and excluding the play-in organizations, every squad was Tier 1 at this event. Gambit were even the lowest ranked side on HLTV coming into the group stage. Despite losing their opening match, the bounce back was incredible, going completely undefeated against elite teams. Na'Vi won IM Katowice the previous year, but yet this time they couldn't even win a single map against the rising Gambit. They just couldn't stop winning. The next few months featured consistent grand final placings, and by the 12th of April, Gambit for the first time in the organization's history were the #1 team in the world. Were we about to start seeing an era-defining side? One that could back up Astralis' run in 2019? Well, if you were thinking that, you'd be quite delusional. And for one good reason. This was the online era. Even their title of IM Katowice featured the lads playing remotely in their team house. If Gambit wanted to prove that they were the best squad in the world, they needed to win LAN tournaments, and by the second half of the season, offline events were returning. This, however, didn't slow down progression at all. They reached the playoffs at the almighty and prestigious IM Cologne and made the semi-finals at the PGL Stockholm Major, to only lose to the eventual winners. For 4 school-age kids and a father, that's quite an impressive achievement, playing in front of a packed Swedish arena. Their next event was the V4 Future Sports Festival held in Budapest, where I casted these guys live on LAN. While all the talent and teams were chilling after a day's work in an aqua park with our feet kicked up, the Gambit management told the players, you cannot go to the sauna, you cannot go to the water park, and instead were shadow banned to their hotel rooms with practice PCs and the tournament area down the road. These blokes were treated like actual NPCs, and perhaps that was the winning mindset that was required to be one of the best rosters in the world. Everyone had high expectations for the lineup moving towards a more refined Tier 1 LAN scene the following year. After farming bots online and reaching the playoffs of IM Katowice, Gambit went into ESL Pro League Season 15, but they had problems coming their way. ESL had made a decision to ban organizations with ties to the Russian government, so both Gambit and Virtus.pro had to go and compete under a neutral name. Considering these sanctions, Gambit were also banned from the PGL RMRs and the Major, so they knew they had to find a way to sell off this roster, and somehow the entire team was sold to Cloud9. After the extremely expensive flop of their 2020 side, Cloud9 was waiting for the right time to come back, and they decided to spend big again. This meant there was no room for failure. Cloud9 would get their sticker back in the game, as their debut event was the all-important major in Belgium, but qualifying would be their only success. The squad were embarrassed. Not only did they manage just a single win, but they were eliminated by the last dance, with f***ing Fur and F and X. What a joke. Luckily, things would turn around for them right at the next event, IM Dallas just 2 weeks later. After an early loss to Furia in the group stage, the Russians won 5 matches in a row and crushed ENCE in the grand final, not even losing a single map. Ax1le was absolutely insane across the entire tournament and won the event's MVP. This would give their fans hope. Maybe they will become an elite team on LAN as well. But the rest of the year was average. They didn't get to another LAN Grand Final and were even eliminated by a Dexter-led Mouse in the quarterfinals of the IM Rio Major. Did Nafany jinx himself from an interview he had with HLTV during the RMR? His goal was to win the major. Was that just too much pressure on a young squad? Ax1le and Shiro spent all of 2022 carrying hard, but the youngsters struggled to convert their online successes in the previous years to the Tier 1 environment playing in front of massive crowds. Despite only winning 1 piece of silverware with the squad, Ax1le was still crowned 4th in the world on HLTV's top 20 players of the year, surpassing his last year's ranking. He became the highest placing rifler, even ranking above Nico, and only losing out to his teammate, ZywOo, and of course Simple. It looked as if nothing was going to stop this rising 20-year-old from continuing to dominate moving into 2023, except well maybe roster changes. In January, Inters was benched and Buster was brought over from VP. Everything was about getting this squad ready for the last ever CSGO major. With them making the playoffs of the last 2 out of 3, it was expected for Cloud9 to plow through the RMR without breaking a sweat. Instead, Ax1le looked bang average and they failed to even qualify for the major. This became their biggest embarrassment, and obviously prompted roster changes. Nafany and Buster were kicked, and Electronic and Perfecto were bought out from Na'Vi, in what looked to be one of the biggest signings in CS history. With this, a real CIS super team was created, and it was about to become one of the scariest teams of all time. Except we all know that wasn't the case. They might have added 2 world-class pieces, but Ax1le just wasn't the same player. He went from averaging a 1.19 rating with the previous lineup to averaging a low 1.06 rating with the new superstar team. In terms of positions, the only change in the entire map pool was him getting moved from Banana on T side to Ax1le. Otherwise, every position on both CT and T remained the same. So individually, it's not as if Ax1le had changed as a player. Now, Electronic called a much scrappier game than Nafany, more like a mix than a proper structured team, and he's also dabbled over the last few years as being an on and off in-game leader. But who's to take responsibility here? I've got to be honest, I don't have the answer for that. It could be either of them. And to make matters worse, the transition from CSGO to CS2 made him look like he'd gone to the dogs. A large part of his performance drop seemed to strongly align with the switch to the new game. You can see it from the very first CS2 LAN event, IM Sydney in 2023. Ax1le was there and posted his lowest LAN rating ever. Mate, just look at who had ratings higher than him at that event. The year ended with Shiro literally wanting to leave the side, and Boomich reunited with Perfecto and Electronic to create the old Na'Vi core. So Boomich comes in to take the in-game leadership away from Electronic and also starts AWPing. Bro, what is even going on here now? Considering Ax1le's age, this is where he should start peaking. But did the young man just not have the pieces around him anymore? Inter's kicked, Nafany kicked. Shiro, his main man, had said sod this, I want to go elsewhere. Just 18 months after Cloud9 picked up Gambit, the lineup had completely lost its identity. The roster was in shambles. And changes didn't even stop there. Across 2024, 2 coaches were kicked, and the players even formed a new core. So can we be surprised that he turned into Humpty Dumpty? Certainly not. This entire year was the worst individual form of his professional career. He was proper mid at absolute best. Cloud9 was a sinking ship. It would have been career suicide to stay, and the timing couldn't have been any better. An offer from BetBoom was on the table and taken in January of 2025. Ax1le had spent the last year working with Boomich as the in-game leader on Cloud9, but had never played with Siren, Zorti, or Managers before. Unfortunately, BetBoom spent the first 7 months of the year playing just 3 LAN events. And well, he looked rubbish in all of them. The team was super inconsistent online and therefore failed to qualify for LAN after LAN. By July, both Ax1le and Zorti were kicked for Artfrost and Dilladez. Once a young superstar, a top 4 player in the entire world has been replaced by a rookie, despite still being 23 years old, a peak performance age for most players. That's how the mighty have fallen. But hang on, did you know that he's already won a LAN in 2026? The incredible Meta Cup Season 3, while standing in with BetBoom because Boomich wasn't able to play. Yep, just some random LAN in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Now you might think that Ax1le has been sent into retirement, but instead he's been banished to the abyss of Tier 2 CS, currently playing on TDK. His stats certainly indicate that he is farming, but just look at the teams he's playing. Yeah, mostly dogs, right? At his age, he should be thriving at the Tier 1 level, competing day in, day out against the very best in the world on LAN. Instead, he lost the system that he flourished in. He struggled to hold long-term consistency from the online era of Tier 2 CS to the highest of the world stage. As years continued, he'd lost more and more of his teammates from the original Gambit youngsters roster and lost his identity as a player. Ax1le may end his legacy as one of the biggest flops in CS2 history. Can he bounce back, return to previous form? Only he can prove that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know by leaving a comment and please consider subscribing. See you all in the next one.